we're here to talk about your amazing book, which is a bestseller on Amazon. You can see it on the screen. It's called Transforming Your Life After Loss, Finding Your Way to Peace and Happiness. Welcome, John.
Hey, welcome, Cliff. Thank you.
So John, let's we're going to talk about a lot today. Your book, your story, how you help people. But let's start with your book. So
Okay.
your book isn't really about loss or grief. I know you cover that in the
Right.
book, but it's really a set up a catalyst. It's more about finding and people finding their true selves. Tell me a little bit about what motivated you to write this book.
Well, as you know, I experienced about a 14-year period of consistent loss. I mean, and it's all detailed in the book. I won't get into all the details here. But it was everything from my job to I had a heart attack. I actually lost my life, It was in a hospital, so I was lucky. I was very fortunate. I was blessed, actually, to be there. And then to culminate it all in 2019, September 2019, I lost my wife of 37 years after a 3-month cancer battle. And when they found that cancer, it was already stage 4. It was throughout her entire body, and there was absolutely nothing that anybody could really do except we just dealt with what we dealt with. And so after that, I was hit with just absolutely overwhelming grief, and I just lived in a gray area. I call it a gray zone in the book, and there's a piece in the book called The Grief Curve, and it describes what that looks like and what it consists of and all that kind of thing, at least my experience of it, Cliff. And so anyway, the reason I decided to write the book was because I needed to get out of that. I was determined not to spend the rest of my life living in the gray zone or living in that state of grief, depression, denial, anger, all of it, sadness, the whole 9 yards. And so that's where the catalyst, I guess, for the book came from, and it took me 4 years to get it done. By the way,
but that's part of the process, right? I mean, people are experts at everything. Unfortunately, you, because of you're expert in loss. I mean, that's really what over the period of time that you had, that's a thing that you focus. But out of that, you've gone through that, right? You've gotten restoration, and your book came out of that. Let's talk about. What in your mind made you say, you know what, I made it through this process. I want to be able to do this to help other people. I want to document this. This was a process for me. This wasn't, looking back now, I realize there's steps and things that I went through, and there's an end game. What's the motivation for you to put that together in a book to help people?
Well, for me, in my entire I spent my entire career in the radio business. I was basically a sales manager. That's what I did. I mean, different levels, obviously, but that's what I did. And what really lit me up inside was when I was working with a salesperson who would just get it and come alive and just go out and put together everything I've been teaching and talking about. I mean, I did it. I learned how to do it myself, but then I was able to teach other people how to do it. And some of them actually figured it out and did a really great job with it. But that really lit me up when that happened. And what I discovered was that I wanted to be a coach. I'd always taken a coaching approach to in my business life, in my career. But when that was over, I didn't want to get back into the corporate world anymore. And I wanted to become a coach, But, I struggle with the term life coach, Cliff, because because it seems like everybody's a coach these days, right? And they're all coaching something. I'm seeing people refer to themselves as coaches, and it's almost humorous to me. In fact, it is humorous to me. It's funny. But the thing is that I want to be able to actually help people. I thought, well, what can I help people through? And then I go back and look at my own experience, look at my own life, and I go, well, it's pretty simple. It's pretty obvious. It's this loss thing, and then it's the grief, and it's not just that, just navigating that, and then getting to the other side and creating a life that they really want to live and that they really are happy with, and how to get there. So that was kind of the motivation, I guess.
And you're right. I mean, it's a universal thing. Everybody experiences life. I mean, you can't live without experiencing some type of loss, right? You can't.
Everybody's going to deal with it. I don't care who you are. And, a lot of people, I thought I was prepared for it, to be quite honest with you. I remember having conversations with myself, sitting in that dark bedroom and talking to myself about how I was going to act and what I was going to be like. And that all just went kaput when the actual when it happened. So I mean, we never know we never know how we're going to react to a situation until we're put in the middle of it. And this book is not designed to help somebody immediately after loss. It's what it's designed to do. It's designed to help them once they're starting to work through the process, and once they're starting to come to the other side of it, to realize they can have a life and they can be happy again, maybe in a different way, but they can be happy, because restoration is often different from what it looked like before. Most people think restoration is having what you had before. It's not. Restoration is having more. My cat just walked in front of the screen. Restoration is having more than you had before, but oftentimes restoration will look different, and that's what some people don't understand or don't get. But and sometimes there's guilt associated with that too, that people have to work through. The book kind of touches on all those things.
It was an interesting point you just made. You said, that when people start to get through the point where they see they can get through it, what are things they can do to get them from like the shock of the loss, or there's, I'm sure there's phases, but what can they do to help them, or maybe help them identify the phase that they're in? Because I think a lot of people, when they're dealing with loss, you can't even process, right? You're just like, no. It's like getting hit with a bat or something. You're just numb. Yeah. But talk about that a little bit. Talk about how they can get from the shock to the next phase.
Yeah, I liken it to being in the boxing ring with Mike Tyson and just getting hit consistently. Tyson was a heck of a boxer, as you know. And when the guy hits you, I mean, and he didn't stop with one punch. He just kept coming. That's what that grief was like for me. It was being in that ring with him and losing, by the way. But to get past a shock and get over it and decide that they're ready to do something, one thing has to happen. They have to want that. And they have to decide that they want that. I've been posting on Facebook and LinkedIn, by the way, since October 17th, little blurbs about it. And I posted something here pretty early on in the process, and I forget exactly what it was, but I got a response from a person who said, I'm in that gray zone, and I'm not sure I want to leave that gray zone yet. And I understand that. I can relate to that, because in that gray zone, it's comfortable. You know what you're dealing with. You know what's there. You know how it feels and all that kind of thing. And you're at least I was very apathetic, and I did not, for a period of time, want to leave that gray zone until I woke up one day and thought, this is not how I'm going to live my life. So they have to want to, and they have to decide. And that's covered in the first chapter of the book, by the way. It's called Wanting and Willing. It's
interesting that you mentioned it's a gray zone, and that's really, it's kind of like the fog that's pulled over their life, right? But it's like a grief blanket almost. I mean, it's one of those things where you're comfortable where you're at, you know where you're at, you know where you were, but you don't know where. You don't know. Yeah, it's funny. Let's go back. We'll stop. I'll just cut it here. So okay. That's an interesting point that you say about the gray zone, because they're comfortable where they're at, right? They don't know what's next. They know where they came from. So it's like limbo. I mean, I'm okay where I'm at, right? I'm okay where I'm at. For you, what were some of the catalysts or some of the things that said that you're like, okay, I'm in the gray zone, but it's time for me to get out?
Yeah, I mean, I say, I'm going to go back to something you just said, that people are okay with it. I don't think I was not okay with it. I was there. I was comfortable there, but I wasn't okay with it. I knew I wanted out. I didn't know how to get out. Okay. For a period of time. And what I did is I woke up one day and I just looked around and I thought, I'm a poker player. I love to play cards, and I had no desire to go do that. I love to eat. I love to cook. I had no desire to do that. There was just no passion for anything. And I decided I prayed to God. I said, restore passion, excitement, and put color back in my life. I remember that very clearly, and those are the three words I used, right? And that's what happened for me was, and I went to bed that night, and I woke up the next day, pardon me, woke up the next day and expected things to be colorful, to be passionate. I wasn't, and not the next day, and not the next day, and not the next week, or the next 2 weeks. But slowly things started to change, and slowly things started to happen. And so that was what started the path for me to restoration, putting excitement, passion, and color back in my life. And those were the three things I focused on. That was kind of became my mantra, right? And that was, for me, that's what happened.